Welcome, everyone. This is Ben Woodbury. I'm with the Friends of History, and I want to welcome you to the November edition of the First Wednesday Lecture Series. As you know, the First Wednesday series is on every month, and we thoroughly enjoy the interest that has been that you all have had on that. We've been online since April of this year and continue to plan to do so until such time as we can then return to the museum and then hopefully be able to share it live and online as we go. If you have been enjoying these lectures and enjoy this and would like to make a contribution to the Friends of History, it would be much appreciated. We advise you to go to our Friends of History webpage. That's friendsofhistory.org, and you'll find more details in terms of how to do that. There are two options. One is to join the Museum Foundation if you're not already a member, and then to add to that foundation by joining the Friends of History itself. If you'd rather just make a direct donation, again, there's an opportunity there on the Friends of History webpage to make those contributions. We will be going live today, and at the conclusion of Chuy's presentation, we will move right into a question and answer period. If you have questions in the course of the presentation or wish to ask them afterward, feel free to post them on the YouTube page below the screen and in the appropriate place on Facebook as well. And we will monitor those and make every effort to answer your questions in the 15 or 20 minutes that we will take for the Q&A. We're fortunate enough today to have Chuy Martinez with us. He is a folklorist and storyteller of the Hispanic culture in New Mexico. He's been a long time supporter and advocate for in the community for activities supporting Hispanic culture. Among his many accomplishments is that he was a grassroots founding member of the National Hispanic Cultural Center, and for 23 years hosted and produced the Maduro de la Cultura television program. In the course of his career, he has received a number of awards. Back in 1998, he received the Human Rights Unsung Hero Award. And also then in 2014, a Lifetime Achievement Award from Hilos Culturales, a 2016 Ohtli Award given by the Mexican government for cultural services abroad. And finally, in 2019, he received the Corazon de Cultura Award from the Hispanic Heritage Committee. We're very fortunate to have him today and be able to do this presentation live. And so at this point, I want to again thank you for joining us and turning over the program to Chuy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the honor of being here, being invited by friends of the culture, Friends of Culture and History of the Museum of New Mexico. It is very important for me to do this kind of things because, you know, around this time, it's been hard for us as artists, as musicians and actors. I mean, I do a little bit of everything. I'm also, you know, like I said, a musician not only that I play music from the past, but also I make, for a long time, I made a living out of music and participated in many, many festivals around the country. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to take you through a kind of different eras in the history of New Mexico, especially in the folklore. As you know, the folklore, it's mostly a small town stories, songs, and music. So what I'm going to like to do, I would like to start from the northern part of New Mexico, southern Colorado. That border is like, people claim it. Some people say that they're from Colorado, others say they're New Mexico, but it's really the birthplace of the first kind of a music, songs, and the development of the that culture, that what we call the Genizaro culture, which was a mix of Spanish and native musics, such as, from all the way from St. Louis, Colorado to Taos, New Mexico, Cuesta, all those little places used to have this type of celebrations, and then spread, of course, to other northern New Mexico towns. What I want to do, the first song that I want to sing to you, because I also brought my guitar to do a couple of songs for you in between the talk. I thought I would make it a little more interesting. For the occasion, since Christmas is coming, there was no other thing that was more celebrated in New Mexico than Christmas. Christmas in New Mexico was so important, but it was totally different. In New Mexico, back in the 1800s, since I can recall some of the stories and history that I learned from maestros, like the Cleofas Vigil, Cleofas Ortiz from northern New Mexico. They used to do this type of music and talk about this history. The Inditas, we're going to start with an Indita, which is a Comanche, also Comanchitos music. The Comanchitos were celebrated all along the northern part of New Mexico, and even around Española and especially at San Juan Pueblo for the Christmas celebrations. These were songs that they were more traditional than like popular music, and it's music that originated there because of this mix of native and Spanish. Los Comanchitos songs and music and dances are celebrated usually, they're still celebrating those around the San Juan Pueblo in just north of Española, and some other places, Alcalde, all the way to Taos and like I said, Costilla, northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. So I'm going to start with this song, and this one talks about the tradition of Los Comanchitos. Usually it would be a lane of people going on one side and women with rattles on the other side, children in the middle, and some drums playing, and men and women answering each other with the verses. The songs didn't have time. You could go on and on you can create your own verses to it. This is the one I learned, and it's not very popular because, of course, it wasn't too many recordings. So I'm going to do a version of Los Comanchitos. Aquí estoy, santo chiquito, para cumplir mi promesa. Este grupo de Comanchitos me vienen a acompañar. Este grupo de Comanchitos me vienen a acompañar. Anahe, 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 en el marco de esta puerta, con que pongo los dos, a toditos agradezco por su buena atención. A toditos agradezco por su buena atención. Anahe, 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 anayaheo, 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 anahe, anahe, anayaheo, anahe, anahe, anayaheo. Al santo niño de Atocha le pedimos, por favor, cuide de sus comanchitos, no se olvide cuántos son. Cuide de sus comanchitos, no se olvide cuántos son. Anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anayaheo, 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 anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anaige, anaige, anaigeo. Y ya con esta me despido, ya me voy para tranquilo. A toditos agradezco por su buena atención. A toditos agradezco por su buena atención. Anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anayaheo, 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 anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anaige, anaige, anaigeo, anaige, anaige, anaigeo. So that's a little, just a small version of Los Comanchitos. As I said before, you can go on and on and on, and you can create your own verses to it. Sometimes they would last 20 minutes, sometimes it would last half hour. It depends on, the time of the celebration and the time of the day, because sometimes it would get cold, but usually it's a beautiful scene because you will see this farolitos or bonfires, whatever you want to call it, on each side of the street, or the place where this was being danced or celebrated, and you can see the silhouettes of all these people dancing and singing and playing music on each side. A beautiful, beautiful scene. And as I said, this is a song from the 1800s. At least that's what how I learned it from the masters at the time in the 1970s when I was researching and playing this type of music. Now we go back to something a little more modern. And it was also the Christmas celebration or the holidays, as we call it, because as we know, it wasn't called Christmas in New Mexico back then. This one is it's an interesting one. This one is a play that's based on Charles Dickens' The Four Ghosts of Christmas Press. And it's very, very interesting because it's a story of now this is more modern, as I said. It's the story of a man who was very successful. His name was Ezequiel, and his last name was Corridos, appropriately, because he was like very tight, kind of like the Scrooge of the story. Ezequiel was a well-educated man who got a master's degree and a PhD in engineering. He was recruited by a very well-known, famous chemical company in Georgia, somewhere out there. So he left New Mexico. Ezequiel found that place to be his place to succeed because, being among so many successful people, engineer, chemists, and all those people that's what success was, and happiness. So Ezequiel ended up getting married, found himself a beautiful home with a white picket fence, white facade. Everything was white. The sofas, the carpet, everything. I mean, it's what Ezequiel had ambition all his life. But the saddest part was that there was times when Ezequiel would lock himself in the basement to listen to Spanish music. And other times he would drive away from the big city to the suburbs to find what resembled a red chili. He will miss the gatherings when his family will get together. It was totally different than the barbecues and the cook-offs that he had over there, in the cocktails and the parties. So one day, one of his uncles showed up in his dreams and was calling him to come and help him cut the wood to make the farolitos. And Ezequiel started remembering those times when he was young. Then later on, his auntie will show up and ask him to go to the store and get some bags and get some candles to also do luminarias for the roofs of the house. He would his other aunt, who was very traditional, was preparing tamales and bizcochitos and rellenos, the typical foods. But then the most memorable dream he had was that his mother would appear to him and said, we miss you. So Ezequiel said that one year, he said, I'm going to New Mexico. I got to go to New Mexico for this Christmas. He left the big city, came home, and to the smell of the pinon wood and the smell of the chili and the tamales and bizcochitos and sopapillas, he entered almost a totally different world, a world that he knew but he had left behind. And then he would when they were sitting at the table, he would remember the stories that his grandmother used to tell around the table, and then now his mother was repeating. So all this was an old, brand new world to him, and he decided, well, I don't have to be out of New Mexico to be successful. He decided to come back and make a living here. So that's part of the song. In fact, this was a play. It was called a New Mexico Christmas Carol. There was an adaptation, as I said, from the Charles Dickens play, and I was asked to write a corrido, so I did, and the corrido goes like this. Los fantasmas del pasado vuelven siempre a recordarnos nuestra vida en muchos modos. Esta es parte de la historia de aquel hombre que en el mundo llevó el nombre Ezequiel Codo. Ezequiel Codos se ha perdido en el sistema, que a muchos de los nuestros se llevó, y muy caro él ha pagado su condena. Solo el amor a la familia lo salvó. Trae la arena, compra velas, dame bolsas para hacer las luminarias. Muele el chile, trae la masa, limpia hojas, los tamales muy pronto estarán. Con bizcochitos, chile verde con relleno. Se celebra en esta tierra Navidad. Y las risas de los niños le dan vida. Porque viene Navidad. Trae la arena, compra velas, dame bolsas para hacer las luminarias. Muele el chile, trae la masa, limpia hoja, los tamales muy pronto estarán. Con bizcochitos, chile verde con relleno. Se celebra en esta tierra Navidad. Las historias de la abuela vuelven siempre. Y en la mesa la repite mi mamá. So that's a corrido Ezequiel Codos. Just like that, there's so many stories here in New Mexico. And you know, one of the beautiful things about New Mexico is that before Christmas, we were already celebrating a version of Christmas, el Santo Niño Manuelito, del Santo Niño de Atocha. I mean, there were so many different celebrations that were traditions more than just spontaneous celebrations. People will prepare months ahead for this type of celebrations. the beautiful thing about it is that when it evolved, many people kept these traditions in their own little towns. And that's how we've been able to preserve all these traditions. When the Christmas and all this, the holiday celebrations started influencing New Mexico, it changed a little bit, but not much. You know, our farolitos were replaced by luminarias, which now we still use, mostly here in New Mexico, more than any other places, although many other states are now putting luminarias. But then with that came the influence, European influence, the Christmas tree from Germany, the Christmas cards from England, all this different foods and things like that. That influenced those celebrations. So it's important to know these things because it's a beautiful, beautiful way of gathering around the table when during Christmas time. I don't know if we can do that now with COVID, but and talk about that. The New Mexico, the Albuquerque Museum of Arts and History, the docents there did a book of Christmas celebrations, a beautiful book that talks about all these influences. I would research it because it's got so many beautiful stories. Okay, so I'm going to go into a different topic. The cautivo and cautivas, part of the history that was also played here, a big part of the New Mexico history. It was sort of like the corridos or the ballads, except that they were also with kind of an Indian influence, because as many of you know, there was a lot of kidnappings from the nomad tribes such as the Comanches and the Apaches in the state of New Mexico, and they will trade children for goods, from horses, food, to whatever, tools and things like that, and vice versa. There was also a lot of cautivos that ended up in Spanish households. This one is the story of Marcelina, who was a woman from around Las Vegas, New Mexico, that was captured. It was a raid, and they captured and killed some of her family. And this is one of the songs where it's like a longing song for. She is singing about how she doesn't want to live that way. If there's gonna kind of life that she's gonna live, she'd rather die, because they had already killed her mother and father, her brothers, and she was going to live that kind of life, it's a tragic kind of story. And like I said, a lot of these songs, I'm cutting them short because there's no time really to do everything that I would like to explore in a talk like this, especially when it comes to history. There's so much. Anyway, this is in the rhythm of cautiva. It was a rhythm like that, and there was many other examples. This one is La Cautiva Marcelina. La cautiva Marcelina, ya se va, ya se la llevan, ya se va, ya se la me van a retirar. La cautiva Marcelina, cuando llego al arbolito, cuando llego al arbolito, bajo la cara llorando, mataron a mi hermanito, mataron a mi hermanito. Por eso ya no quiero en el mundo más amar, de mi querida patria me van a retirar. La cautiva Marcelina, cuando llego al ojo de agua, cuando llego al ojo de agua, bajo la cara llorando, mataron allá a mi mamá y mataron allá a mi mamá. Por eso ya no quiero en el mundo más amar, de mi querida patria me van a retirar. La cautiva Marcelina, ya se va, ya se la llevan, ya se va, ya se la llevan. Para otras tierras lejanas, a comer carne de yegua y a comer carne de yegua. Por eso ya no quiero en el mundo más amar, de mi querida patria me van a retirar. Again, another example. This song I learned from a professor, Dr. Ruben Cobos, who was a folklorist and a professor at the University of New Mexico, and then many other places. He was a well-known folklorist and a collector of so many different types of music, all the way from Alaska to Argentina. Dr. Cobos, I had many beautiful times with him, and it was an honor to be mentor in some of those some of this type of music. There's also the John Robb collection at the University of New Mexico, which has so many songs and music of New Mexico. He used to go around collecting music, not just Spanish music, although that was his one of his preferences, because he lived here in New Mexico. Also, another great friend of mine, Jack Loeffler, who was a folklorist, who used to go around collecting all this music and on those little towns. I can mention Enrique La Madrid, Dr. Enrique La Madrid, which is also a big influence here in New Mexico, along with many other folklorists that are still alive. They're still playing this type of music, like Cipriano Vigil, and our late Antonia Apodaca. Anyway, a lot of these people, I had the honor to know them because of the television program I had, and also to visit with them. They love this type of music. And as I said, all these references that I'm giving you you can go and research if you want to find out more about this type of music. So now I think I would like to go into the more into the contemporary type of songs and music. The stories, the folklore, as you know, it's so huge here in New Mexico because we have, you know, ghost stories, we have tragic stories, we have, you know, corridos that talk about the war, for example, the corridos about battles and land, the land grants. I mean, there's so much. But the corridistas played a big part in the development of New Mexico because they were the ones who were kind of the newsmen. Many towns and places didn't have newspapers or print media. So it was the duty of the corridistas to stand on the plaza and sing about the things that were going on around the region. They would get it from traders, people that were going back and forth, or prospectors, you know. They would get all the stories and then put music to them and sing, and that was like the news. It was like sort of like the town crier. It was a beautiful way of not only socializing, but also listening to what was going on around the region or around the country, actually, in some places. It was also those popular corridos that sort of make history. For example, there's this one corrido in the 1940s, the 1930s and 40s. We had a senator here in New Mexico, is very popular, Senator Dennis Chavez. And he got one of the most famous Mexican composers and singers to come and work with him for the campaign. So this man ended up writing a ballad of Dennis Chavez for his campaign. But he also wrote another song that was very popular, and you'll recognize it. But before I start singing a little bit of the song, I want to tell you a little bit about the song. When Tito Cesar, that was the name of the composer and singer, very well known, famous a composer and singer, came to New Mexico. Dennis Chavez placed him here in over there in Albuquerque, and got him a place right on the plaza of one of those beautiful homes around that time, the 1930s. Well, Tito Cesar continued writing songs. He actually went to many places with Dennis Chavez, Senator Chavez. But he wrote this one song that some of the people here in New Mexico knew. They used to sing the song. Some of the soldiers that went to World War II and they got shut down over Germany used to sing the song in prisoner at the camps and the prison camps there in Germany. Well, the German guards loved that song, and they recorded it. You know, they liked it so much that they recorded it. And they recorded it under the. I'm sorry, I guess my timer here. I had my timer on, I'm sorry. They recorded it under the name of the Mexican polka. And then the song came back to New Mexico right after the war. And of course, you know, and in Texas, it was very popular because that's where a lot of the people were using the accordion that it was influenced by the Germans, and here in New Mexico too. So anyway, it became more popular over there before it came even here. Then a movie was made out of it. In fact, John Wayne did a version of it. He filmed this a version of this, the name of the song. And I'll tell you, you're going to recognize it because the name of the song was El Rancho Grande. And I'll sing a couple of verses of it. Allá en el Rancho Grande, allá donde vivía, había una rancherita que alegre me decía, que alegre me decía. ¿Qué voy a hacer tus calzones? Como los que usa el ranchero. En los comienzos del año. De los sacados del cuero, allá en el rancho grande, allá donde había una rancherita que alegre me decía, que alegre me decía. Again, just a little version of the song. The song also has many, many different verses to it. Because the corridos back then, you know, there was the FCC didn't have any restrictions on how long the songs could be. So the corridos and ballads were used to describe, as I said before, an event, but they were also for, you know, prominent figures, for heroes, for even for bandidos, you know, and different kinds of people. And it was a beautiful way of honoring somebody. When you had a corrido made up to you, I mean, it was such an honor. But I know that the time goes by so darn fast, and I wish I could just, you know, take a whole day to talk to you guys, and we can have a discussion about all those beautiful things. So very quickly, I'm going to do another song. And this one was written, it was actually a play that was written by Tony Maris, who was also a folklorist. He was also the director of education of the Albuquerque Museum for a while back in the 1980s when I met him. And we collaborated in a lot of projects, education projects and history projects. This one actually was a play that he wrote, or we adopted it as a play. And they asked me to do part of the music for one of the plays. But the story is the story of a lady by the name of Lola. Lola was a beautiful woman that and was so elegant and so rich, and popular. And she had a brothel. I mean, most of her clients were high-class clients, you know, a lot of politicians, prominent people in the town or in the city. Well, there's always a Lola in each town, you know. But this one was set on an old town, Albuquerque. And Lola had a home where upstairs was her living quarters and downstairs was the bar and the brothel and all that. Most of her clients, as I said, there were so many from so many different walks of life, cowboys, Hispanic politicians, even a priest. I guess this priest had come from France. I'm sorry. He was a French priest that came from I guess they sent him all the way from France or came from Mexico. I don't know. But anyway, his name was Father Horney, but they used to call him Father Horny. Anyway, Lola was so popular and so successful in her business and everything, but she was also kind of sad because after a night of party and night of drinking and all that, she will go upstairs to her living quarters where she would slip it off, but then she would look out the window and there on the backyard will be Pedro, the gardener, watering the roses and whistling to him and singing to him. And it was a totally different ambience, that dirt, that wetness of the dirt, the smell of the roses, and the singing of Pedro would give her a totally different perspective in life. So consequently, she fell in love with Pedro, and it was her secret love. She is telling all these things as she is dying on her deathbed, and all these scenes are coming to her. And there's a lot of that. There's always one Lola in each town, as I said, or in each city. Anyway, it was a beautiful play called Lola's Deathbeds. And I had the honor to sing the song, which was a poem that was made into music. Levántate, Lola, ya viene el amanecer, que canta el ruiseñor. ¿Recuerdas el gallo de ayer? Los tiempos de antaño no queda ninguna flor, mas hoy amanece con donaire de amor. Levántate, Lola, ya viene el amanecer, que canta el ruiseñor. ¿Recuerdas el gallo de ayer? Lola's last dance. As you can see, this is totally different type of music. Some of it is not even recorded because it's not popular. It's traditional. It's popular in the places where they know this type of music, but it's more traditional because of the importance of this type of music in society. You know, they're very important types of stories and music. So I wish I had more time, as I said before, to share with you. But at this time, I think I would like to invite you to do some questions if you have any questions. And Ben, I don't know how you were thinking of handling this. I don't think we have too much time because I went over a little bit.
Well, thank you, Chuy. More than happy to have had you spend the time you needed. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. I really got a lot out of it, as I'm sure others have as well. For those that wish to ask a question or make a comment, again, I remind you to post them below the YouTube page, or now that folks are watching it through Facebook as well, using that to see. I know we've received a lot of comments already. People have thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. I was struck by a number of things, and perhaps to get it started, I noticed you talked about the San Luis Valley and northern New Mexico. And the question came to me I assumed that there was a lot of regional variation to the music, even if they were songs that were similar, but again, varied. And I didn't know whether you might want to comment on that.
Well, yes, because those places were kind of isolated from other places. So of course, they had their own variations of, for example, the ballads, corridos, and the types of songs, depending on on the things that were happening around that area. But they were more traditional also because they hadn't been contaminated with with much of the outside. So that's one thing that I learned from Cleophas Vigil, who was a folklorist. This man was amazing. And Jack Loeffler actually did a lot of his recordings. And also, I think that Enrique La Madrid has some of his recordings where he talks about, this type of variations of the music.
Yeah. It turns out that Jack has supported a number of the exhibits in the History Museum, most notably his the countercultural exhibit that was done several years back with, we've talked with Jack a number of times. He has donated many of his recordings to the New Mexico History Museum, the Fray Angelica Chavez library, I should say, and which is part of the museum. And so I believe that they are available for those who wish to listen to it. Granted, we have to wait a bit until we get through this COVID pandemic, but it's good to know that those are available as well. Also wanted to highlight what you had mentioned in terms of, clearly you've done a lot of work with the Albuquerque Museum of Art and History. We've talked about that collection of songs that they put together. Understand that they were hoping to put together a DVD for that, and that it would be available for those who would reach out to the museum there for those. Am I correct?
That's correct. We actually also produced a collection of songs, traditional songs. They were mainly for the schools, for the public schools, but they were traditional type of songs that so that kids could and teachers could use them to further their knowledge about the history of New Mexico. And it was very popular. Right now, we're in the process of trying to find some funding for produce more DVDs or CDs. We do have a booklet with the music and the words and all that. But also on the Jack Loeffler's collection, you will find some of my other songs, original music that I recorded for him. As I said, I spent time with Jack, and we collaborated in a lot of different projects. So he's a treasure here in New Mexico, for sure, along with Dr.
As are you. And we much appreciate it. Yeah, turns out we had a question as well in terms of where there may be other recordings of the music that of this style of music that you might be aware of.
Well, at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., produced the Music of New Mexico series. Oh. Also, Enrique La Madrid produced a couple of CDs for us when I was working at the Albuquerque Museum for the Education Division. That's called the Music of New Mexico as well. And these are like old recordings from people that, unfortunately have passed, but their music is still a reflection of those, those times in New Mexico. There's also another lady by the name of Julia Jaramillo in Taos, who did a lot of recordings of the old types of songs and music that were used for dances and parties and celebrations. And in fact, there's a group over there that still dance those kind of things in Santa Fe called the Los Coloniales de Santa Fe. And they still do those type of songs, chotises, marchas, chotas. All the polkas. There's so many types of music that they're dance music, but they're only in New Mexico. It's such a tradition. It's beautiful. I would encourage you to check them out because besides doing the dance, they also do the history behind it. Because there's a lot of European influence on that. So I would explore that. But aside from that, there's the Smithsonian Institute, like I mentioned before, the John Rath collection at the University of New Mexico. It's another place where you can find many of these recordings. Some of the television programs that I did were Julia Jaramillo from Taos is and Cipriano Vigil, Antonia Apodaca, some of the New Mexico well-known musicians that played this type of music, traditional music. They're on that collection, and part of it, of course, the city of Albuquerque, the Channel 16 rescued a lot of those in the past, but also the Center for Regional Studies at the University of New Mexico. I have some of the first 10 years, I think, because I did that program for 23 years.
Yep. Yeah, wonderful. Are you? I assume you're still with working with colleagues. You continue to find new songs to your repertoire.
All the time. We're there's times when I get together with friends and that's all we do. We talk about music, not just from New Mexico, from all over the world, because the folklore it's so beautiful because it tells you the stories, and you have to have the gift of telling a whole story in 3 minutes. It's not like a poem that you can go on and on, or books, that you can tell a whole story. You have to be able to give the public or give the audience a picture that they can imagine and complete the rest of it. It's like completing a sentence. You give them a verse to it, and then have their imagination. This is how you honor their mind. You honor them. To really come up with the rest of it, and that's what we call it, folklore.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I want to thank you very much for opening a window for many of us to this unique aspect of Hispanic culture and the richness of it that's you've been able to present. If it's possible, perhaps we could finish by you doing one more song.
Sure.
Okay.
I can do another song. This is a song that was that I also share, is because it's a song of the Vietnam War. A song that I used to sing for friends. And we hardly sing anymore. And to honor my Vietnam veterans friends, sea por el amor de Dios, qué cosa me sucedió. Desgracia por el destino, presente lo tengo yo. Un día pelear fui yo. Una carta recibí. Muy triste yo me sentí, pues ya me iba yo a casar. Una carta recibí, que me fuera yo a enlistar. Una carta recibí, porque me iba yo a casar. Y una carta recibí, mi novia me la mandó. Muy triste yo me sentí, porque ella me dice así. Si al tener esta carta en tus manos, tú me has de perdonar. Yo me casé con tu amigo, ya no te pude esperar. Óigame, señor teniente, mándeme usted a pelear. Si me matan en el frente, talks about the Vietnam War, so like a Dear John song, but it was kind of popular back then in the 1960s and 70s when some of the friends were in the war in Vietnam. As you know, per capita, many of the New Mexican soldiers, Hispanic soldiers, lost their lives in Vietnam. And some of them came back and they were maimed, you know, others were in bad shape. So that's why I always like to remember them, because I had so many friends that I lost through around those from that era.
Right. Well, thank you, Chuy. Really appreciate it. It's been a charming time spent with you, and I want to thank you for sharing all your knowledge and background in musical art with us. I'll say goodbye to everyone here, and we hope to see you again next month, again on the first Wednesday at 12 noon. We will be fortunate to have with us Kathleen Cahill, who is an associate professor of history at Penn State University, formerly a professor here at the University of New Mexico. And she will talk on her new book, Recasting the Vote, which focuses on how women of color transformed the suffrage movement. Very fitting given this anniversary year for that event. So until then, have a good time, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Chuy.